Warm greetings. How's everyone? I'm well, guys. I'm well, thanks. Guys, today we're going to be doing the chapter 3 of the Labor Relations Act, which deals with the collective bargaining. Very important part about the collective bargaining, right? So we're going to be doing that video. So we're going to be doing part A of the collective bargaining, right? All right. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in, and thank you very much, guys, for subscribing to the channel. Those who have not yet subscribed, please do subscribe, guys. At the bottom of this video, there's a subscribe option. Please do click on it and subscribe. All right, guys, let's get to it. Chapter 3 of the Labor Relations Act, the LRA. This is the main legislation in the country governing the labor relations, right? It's called the Labor Relations Act. So we're going to be doing the chapter 3, which is about the collective bargaining, right? Okay, let's get to it. Part A, organizational rights, right? Trade union representatives. In this part, unless otherwise stated, the representative trade union means a registered trade union or two or more registered trade unions acting jointly that are sufficiently representative of employees employed by an employer in a workplace. Right. 12. Trade union access to workplace. Right, let's get number 1. Any office bearer or official of a representative trade union is entitled to enter the employer's premises in order to recruit members or communicate with members or otherwise serve members' interests. Number 2, a representative trade union is entitled to hold meetings with employees outside their working hours at the employer's premises. Hope you guys are following me well. Number 3, the members of a representative trade union are entitled to vote at the employer's premises in any election or ballot contemplated in that trade union's constitution, right? Okay, just a moment. Let's just fix something here. Okay. All right. No. Apologies for that little distraction. All right, let's carry on, guys. Okay, let's carry on. Then we go to number 4. The rights conferred by this section are subject to any conditions as to time and place that are reasonable and necessary to safeguard life or property or to prevent the undue disruption of work. Right, let's get to deduction of trade union deduction of trade union subscriptions or levies. Number 1, an employee who's a member of a representative trade union may authorize an employer in writing to deduct subscriptions or levies payable to that trade union from the employee's wages. Number 2, an employer who receives an authorization in terms of subsection 1 must begin making the authorized deductions as soon as possible and must remit the amount deducted to the representative trade union by no later than the 15th day of the month first following the date each deduction was made. Right. Number 3, an employee may revoke an authorization given in terms of subsection 1 by giving the employer and the representative trade union 1 month written notice of, or if the employee works in the public service, 3 month written notice. Number 4, an employer who receives a notice in terms of subsection 3 must continue to make the authorized deduction until the notice period has expired, and then must stop making deduction. Number 5, with each monthly remittance, the employer must give the representative trade union 1, a list of the names of every member from whose wages the employer has made the deductions that are included in the remittance. 2, details of the amount deducted and remitted and the period to which the deductions relate to. And 3, a copy of every notice of revocation in terms of subsection 3. That's very important. Because some of the employers, they are very stubborn. They don't want to provide members or shop stewards of the trade unions with this kind of information. Every month, they've got a duty to be doing this. And if you're a shop steward, you've got a right and responsibility to demand this from your employer. Trade union representatives. 1. In this section, representative trade union means a registered trade union or 2 or more registered trade unions acting jointly that have as members the majority of employees employed by an employer in a workplace, right? 2. In any workplace in which at least 10 members of a representative trade union are employed, those members are entitled to elect from among themselves. A. If there are 10 members of the trade union employed in the workplace, 1 trade union representative. By trade union representative, we mean shop stewards. That's the normal name or wording that we know of. There's a shop steward. B. If there are more than 10 members of the trade union employed in the workplace, 2 trade union representatives. C. If there are more than 50 members of the trade union employed in the workplace, 2 trade union representatives for the first 50 members, plus a further 1 trade union representative for every additional 50 members, up to a maximum of 7 trade union representatives. D. If there are more than 300 members of the trade union employed in the workplace, 7 trade union representatives for the first 300 members, plus 1 additional trade union representative for every 100 additional members, up to a maximum of 10 trade union representatives. E. If there are more than 600 members of the trade union employed in the workplace, 10 trade union representatives for the first 600 plus 1 additional trade union representative for every 200 additional members, up to a maximum of 12 union representatives. And if there are more than 1,000 members of the trade union employed in the workplace, 12 trade union representatives for the first 1,000 members, plus 1 additional trade union representative for every 500 additional members, to a maximum of 20 trade union representatives. I hope you guys understand this very well. Number 3, the constitution of the representative trade union governs the nomination, election, term of office, and removal from office of a trade union representative. Number 4, a trade union representative has the right to perform the following functions. A. At the request of an employee in the workplace, to assist and represent the employee in grievance and disciplinary proceedings. B. To monitor the employer's compliance with the workplace-related provisions of this Act, any law regulating terms and conditions of employment, and any collective agreement binding on the employer. Right? C. To report any alleged contravention of the workplace-related provisions of this Act, any law regulating terms and conditions of employment, and any collective agreement binding on the employer to the employer. Secondly, to the representative trade union. And thirdly, any responsible authority or agents. D. To perform any other function agreed to between the representative trade union and the employer. Right? Then let's go to number 5. Subject to reasonable conditions, a trade union representative is entitled to take reasonable time off pay during working hours. A. To perform the functions of a trade union representative, and B. To be trained in any subject relevant to the performance of the functions of a trade union representative. 15. Leave for trade union activities. 1. An employee who is an office bearer of a representative trade union or of a federation of trade unions to which the representative trade union is affiliated is entitled to take reasonable leave during working hours for the purpose of performing the functions of that office. Right. 2. The representative trade union and the employer may agree to the number of days of leave, the number of days of paid leave, and the conditions attached to any leave. Number 3. An arbitration award in terms of Section 21, subsection 7, regulating any of the matters referred to in subsection 2, remain in force for 12 months from the date of the award. Number 16. Disclosure of information. Number 1. For the purpose of this section, representative trade union means a registered trade union or two or more registered trade unions acting jointly that have as members the majority of the employees employed by an employer in a workplace. 2. Subject to subsection 5, an employer must disclose to a trade union representative all relevant information that will allow the trade union representative to perform effectively the functions referred to in section 14 subsection 4. Right. Number 3. Subject to subsection 5, whenever an employer is consulting or bargaining with a representative trade union, the employer must disclose to the representative trade union all relevant information that will allow the representative trade union to engage effectively in consultation or collective bargaining. Number 4, the employer must notify the trade union representative of the representative trade union in writing if any information disclosed in terms of subsection 2 or 3 is confidential. Number 5, an employer is not required to disclose information A that is legally privileged, B that the employer cannot disclose without contravening prohibition imposed on the employer by any law or order of any court, C that is confidential and if disclosed may cause substantial harm to an employee or the employer, or D that is private personal information relating to an employee unless that employee consents to the disclosure of that information. 6. If there is a dispute about what information is required to be disclosed in terms of this section, any party to this dispute may refer the dispute in writing to the Commission. Number 7. The party who refers the dispute to the Commission must satisfy it that the copy of the referral has been served on all other parties to the dispute. 8. The Commission must attempt to resolve the dispute through conciliation. Number 9. If the dispute remains unresolved, any party to the dispute may request that the dispute be resolved through arbitration. Number 10. In any dispute about the disclosure of information contemplated in subsection 6, the Commissioner must first decide whether or not the information is relevant. 11. If the Commissioner decides that the information is relevant and is information contemplated in subsection 5C or D, the Commissioner must balance the harm that the disclosure is likely to cause to an employee or employer against the harm that the failure to disclose the information is likely to cause to the ability of a trade union representative to perform effectively the functions referred to in section 14 subsection 4, or the ability of a representative trade union to engage effectively in consultation or collective bargaining. Number 12. If the Commissioner decides that the balance of harm favors the disclosure of the information, the Commissioner may order the disclosure of the information on terms designed to limit the harm likely to be caused to the employer or to employee or employer. 13. When making an order in terms of subsection 12, the Commissioner must take into account any breach of confidentiality in respect of information disclosed in terms of this section at that workplace and may refuse to order the disclosure of the information or any other confidential information which might otherwise be disclosed for a period specified in the arbitration award. 14. In any dispute about an alleged breach of confidentiality, the Commissioner may order that the right to disclosure of information in that workplace be withdrawn for a period specified in the arbitration award. Restricted rights in domestic sector. 1. For the purpose of this section, domestic sector means the employment of employees engaged in domestic work in their employers' homes or on the property on which the home is situated. 2. The rights conferred on the representative trade union by this part insofar as they apply to the domestic sector are subject to the following limitations. A. The right of access to the premises of the employer conferred by section 12 of an office bearer or official of a representative trade union does not include the right to enter the home of the employer unless the employer agrees. And B. The right to the disclosure of information conferred by section 16 does not apply in the domestic sector, right? 18. Rights to establish threshold of representative. An employer and the registered trade union whose members are a majority of the employees employed by the employer in a workplace or the parties to a bargaining council may conclude a collective agreement establishing a threshold of representativeness required in respect of one or more of the organizational rights referred to in section 12, 13, and 15. Right. A collective agreement concluded in terms of subsection 1 is not binding unless the thresholds of representativeness in the collective agreement are applied equally to any registered trade union seeking any of the organizational rights referred to in that subsection. Right. Number 19. Certain organizational rights for trade union party to council. Registered trade unions that are parties to a council automatically have the rights contemplated in section 12 and 13 in respect of all workplaces within the registered scope of the council, regardless of their representativeness in any particular workplace. 20. Occasional rights in collective agreement. Nothing in this part precludes that the conclusion of a collective agreement that regulates occasional rights. 21. Exercise of rights conferred by this part. Number 1, any registered trade union, right, may notify an employer in writing that it seeks to exercise one or more of the rights conferred by this part in a workplace. 2. The notice referred to in subsection 1 must be accompanied by a certified copy of the trade union certificate of registration and must specify what A. the workplace in respect in which the trade union seeks to exercise the rights, B. the representativeness of the trade union in that workplace and the facts relied upon to demonstrate that it is a representative trade union, and C. the rights that the trade union seeks to exercise and the manner in which it seeks to exercise those rights. 3. Within 30 days of receiving the notice, the employer must meet the registered trade union and endeavor to conclude a collective agreement as to the manner in which the trade union will exercise the rights in respect of that workplace. 4. If a collective agreement is not concluded, either the registered trade union or the employer may refer the dispute in writing to the commission. 5. The party who refers the dispute to a commission must satisfy it that a copy of the referral has been served on the other party to the dispute. 6. The commission must appoint a commissioner to attempt to resolve the dispute through conciliation. Right? Number 7. If the dispute remains unresolved, either party to dispute may request that the dispute be resolved through arbitration. 8. If the unresolved dispute is about whether or not the registered trade union is a representative trade union, the commissioner A must seek 1. to minimize the proliferation of trade union representation in a single workplace and, where possible, to encourage a system of representative trade union in a workplace, and 2. to minimize financial and administrative burden of requiring an employer to grant organizational rights to more than one registered trade union. B must consider 1. the nature of the workplace, 2. the nature of the one or more occasional rights that the registered trade union seeks to exercise. 3. the nature of the sector in which the workplace is situated, and 4. the organizational history in the workplace or any other workplace of the employee, and C. may withdraw any of the organizational rights conferred by this part and which are exercised by any other registered trade union in respect of that workplace if that other trade union has ceased to be a representative trade union. Right? Number 9. In order to determine the membership or support of a registered trade union, the commissioner may A. make any necessary inquiries, B. where appropriate conduct a ballot of the relevant employees, and C. take into account any other relevant information. 10. The employer must cooperate with the commissioner when the commissioner acts in terms of subsection 9, must make available to the commissioner any information and facilities that are reasonably necessary for the purpose of that subsection. Number 11. An employer who alleges that the trade union is no longer a representative union may apply to the commission to withdraw any of the organizational rights conferred by this part, in which case the provisions of subsection 5 to 10 apply, read with the changes required by the context. 22. Dispute about organizational rights. Number 1. Any party to a dispute about the interpretation or application of any provision of this part other than a dispute contemplated in section 21 may refer the dispute in writing to the commission. 2. The party who refers the dispute to the commission must satisfy it that a copy of the referral has been served on all other parties to the dispute. 3. The commission must attempt to resolve the dispute through conciliation. 4. If the dispute remains unresolved, any party to the dispute may request that the dispute be resolved through arbitration as soon as possible. Alright guys, that's a part A, right? Part A of the chapter 3 of the Labour Relations Act. In the next video then we'll deal with part B. Thank you very much guys. Thank you very much guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it guys. Please do share this video in whatever different social media platforms that you guys are using. Please do share it to ensure this information reaches as wide audience as possible, to ensure that people are empowered with this kind of knowledge. Thank you very much guys. Lesedi Makukhanye.